Hello, dear learners. I welcome you all to another video session of the MOOC on gender and the media. In this session, we shall be discussing the Module 6 and Unit 16 titled Bodies and Objectification, Female Body Image and the Mass Media. Dear learners, we know that mass media has become a very integral and essential part of our daily lives. Media is a powerful tool which has the capacity to influence and shape our perception of the world, our perception about ourselves, the social reality, so on and so forth. It has a profound influence on how we view the world, ourselves and others. Through television programs, social media, advertising, so on and so forth, media channels convey information and ideas that reach millions of people, influencing public opinion, cultural norms, and societal values and attitudes. Therefore, in short, mass media plays a dual role. It acts as both a mirror reflecting the society and also at the same time as a lens that can shape and even alter our understanding of the world. So, mass media has a huge influence upon us, and its influence is undeniable, and it plays and continues to play a significant role in shaping individual perceptions and collective consciousness. In the recent years, with its emerging diversified forms, the influence of mass media on society is growing exponentially. One of the most significant ways in which media impacts us, as we have already mentioned, is by shaping our perception of reality. The portrayal of events, issues, and people in the media often dictates how we understand them, and also sometimes even distorts our own understandings, our own preconceived notions, our views. So media influences, and also at the same time it sometimes distorts even our own views about any social events, about others, about ourselves, etc. So it is in this context, therefore, we are going to understand today how woman is being portrayed in the media, and how such portrayal is often stereotypical, derogatory, and objectifies women. Mass media usually portrays both men and women through stereotypical lenses that constrain our understanding of human potential and reinforce traditional gender binaries, gender stereotypes, and norms. Now, how does mass media do it? So when we talk about mass media, about films, about television programs, we often see that men are more commonly depicted or portrayed as active, as outspoken, as adventurous, powerful, sexually dominant, and having all other masculine characteristics. In contrast to men, if you see, women are often represented as passive, submissive, dependent on her male counterpart, and being primarily valued for her physical attractiveness. So these portrayals of women, frequently position her as sex objects, often depicted as incompetent or lacking intellectual depth. Female characters are typically shown as dedicating their energies to personal appearance and domestic roles, such as managing the household and caring for others. Now, given this pervasive nature of media in the contemporary society, these portrayals, these reductive gender representations, these stereotypical gender representations have the potential to shape, to mold, or even distort our perception of gender roles, influencing how individuals view themselves and shaping social ideals of what is considered normal or desirable for both men and women. So, we have seen that media portrays stereotypical images of both men and women. But when it comes specifically to women, studies have stated that women are largely underrepresented or misrepresented in the media. They are hardly given any lead characters in shows, cinemas, or soaps. Further, they are portrayed largely, as we have previously mentioned, as dependent, incompetent, passive, only playing the role of caregiver, all of which reiterate the cultural image of women as dependent ornamental objects whose primary function is to look good, please men, and stay quietly on the periphery of life. In addition, as Julia T. Wood has argued in her essay, The Gendered Media, when media portrays women who work outside the home, their professional lives are often sidelined or given minimal attention. Despite holding titles such as lawyer or doctor, these characters are primarily depicted in domestic roles as wives, mothers, and homemakers. They are frequently shown engaging in caring conversations with family and friends or performing tasks for others, with little to no depiction of the challenges or role conflicts that might arise between their personal and professional responsibilities. This kind of representation fosters an unrealistic expectation of women as a superwoman capable of balancing a successful career with flawless domestic life, all while maintaining an impeccable appearance and never missing a deadline. So, dear learners, from this we have learned that media portrays both men and women stereotypically, but such stereotypes are much more for women, and we have seen that women are largely, as we have already mentioned, women are largely underrepresented and misrepresented in the media, and she is mostly portrayed in her domestic life, being a caregiver or being a nurturer or playing her domestic chores. So her role is mostly projected like that. And even when sometimes women are shown as having professional careers, but then there is no depiction of the role conflicts that she faced while managing her professional career and personal life. Women are always, in that context, women are always presented as superwomen, capable of doing everything flawlessly, capable of maintaining her house, taking care of her children, taking care of her professional life, all together, flawlessly. So this kind of media projections, typically portrays women in ways that emphasize her physical appearance, emotional sensitivity, and domestic roles, rather than showcasing her professional achievements, intelligence, or complexity as individuals. In many cases, women are portrayed in relation to others, such as daughters, wives, or mothers, rather than autonomous figures with independent goals or careers. And when women are depicted in professional settings, as we have discussed previously, their roles are often shown as being secondary to their personal lives. Women in leadership positions are frequently represented or presented as exceptions, or are portrayed usually with a negative trait, with negative traits such as being overtly aggressive, dominant, or unlikable. So, dear learners, media portrayals of women are often, being shaped by the long-standing stereotypes and narrow representations that can limit how society views women's roles, capabilities, and identities. These portrayals often reinforce societal expectations and norms about femininity, and often diminishing women's diverse contributions to the society and presenting rather a narrow and idealized version of womanhood which most women experience. So now let us discuss about another crucial issue regarding portrayal of women in media, that is objectification of female bodies. Dear learners, the representation of female bodies in the mass media has been a topic of great concern and significance since time immemorial. In simple words, objectification of women refers to the treatment of women as objects or things to be looked at, to be used or consumed, rather than as full complex individuals with their own identities, thoughts and feelings. So objectification implies reduction of women to mere objects, stripping them off from their full individuality. This phenomenon occurs across various media contexts, including advertisements, films, soaps, so on and so forth. This objectification is perpetuated through sexualized representations where the focus is on the physical appearance, particularly the body, rather than on the personal and professional achievements of women. Thus, in such portrayals, women's bodies or appearances are prioritized over their abilities, personalities, and autonomy. Feminist scholars argue that the objectification of women entails the complete erasure of their intellectual and personal capabilities and capacities, thereby reducing their value and societal role to that of an instrument for the sexual gratification or pleasure perceived by others. Such portrayals often depict women in vulnerable and submissive positions, rendering them being easily dominated or controlled, thereby reinforcing the already existing gendered power imbalances. Now, dear learners, this objectification of women in media is not confined to India alone. It happens across the world. It is a global phenomenon. In the Indian context, this phenomenon of objectification is evident across various forms of media, where female body is often presented as a tool for male desire, as an object of male gaze, serving the purpose of catering to male fantasy and thereby reinforcing patriarchal ideals. Examples of this objectification are many, and one can easily see in Bollywood or in regional cinemas or in soaps. We often see how women are being portrayed in roles that emphasize more on their beauty, their sensuality and physical attractiveness. The focus on the female body is not only a means of showcasing women's physical appeal, but also a form of commodification, as women's bodies are presented as marketable objects within the entertainment industry. For example, item numbers in Bollywood songs, a common feature of Indian films, are seen as sexualizing the female body to a large extent. In songs like Munni Badnaam Hui or Sheila Ki Jawani, etc., women are seen as being seen to be dressed, provocatively and perform lucrative dances. The lyrics of these songs we see are often emphasize their physicality and their appeal to male desire. While these item numbers are seen as entertainment by a certain section of the population, they also reduce women to the object of pleasure for male gaze, thus reinforcing stereotypes of women as passive sexual objects. Now, coming to Indian advertisements, we often see that in Indian advertisements there is frequent portrayal of an idealized, often unattainable body image of women. We see how women are being projected as, or portrayed as being tall, fair, slim, possessing a flawless skin. So this kind of body image is deeply ingrained in the mind of the viewers, creating a standardized, hegemonic concept of beauty. And these creation of a hegemonic, a standardized model of beauty, pressurizes many women to conform to this ideal, to conform to this hegemonized idea of beauty and perfect body. Fairness creams, for example, are heavily marketed in India, where we see that fairness is often equated with beauty and social success. If a woman is to be beautiful, she has to look fair. Brands like Fair and Lovely have been often criticized for perpetuating the notion that lighter skin tones are more desirable. So we see how Indian advertisements, just like Indian cinema, soaps, TV programs, etc., they project an idealized version of women being tall, being fair, being thin. So if you are to be beautiful, you have to match to these parameters. You have to be thin, you have to be taller, you have to be you have to have a fair skin tone. So these, you have to fit to this hegemonic idea of beauty. And this leads to a kind of pressure among women to conform to such beauty ideals. So these advertisements, they perpetuate a very, very racialized notion of beauty, while simultaneously promoting, as we have mentioned, a homogeneous ideal of female body that marginalizes women who do not fit into these standards. So women who do not fit into these standards, they tend to develop a very, very negative self-image of their body. They tend to feel low, have lower sense of self-esteem. They tend to feel that they are not beautiful. So that kind of feeling, that kind of idea is generated among people through media, by projecting women in such kind of a stereotypical way. So these advertisements not only reinforce superficial beauty ideals, but also encourage women to constantly evaluate their self-worth based on their body image or physical appearance. As women compare themselves to these airbrushed images of perfection, feelings of inadequacy and lower self-esteem becomes widespread among women. The negative impact of these media portrayals is particularly profound among young girls who may internalize these ideals and grow up with a distorted sense of their own bodies. In the recent years, the advent of social media platforms like Instagram and Facebook, etc., have amplified the pressure on women to conform to these unrealistic beauty standards. Social media influencers, often presenting a curated version of their lives, heavily emphasize their looks and promote products related to the beauty, fitness, and fashion. This has further perpetuated the objectification of female body, where women are encouraged to show off their perfect physiques, thus feeding into the idea that appearance is most important measure of a woman's value. Thus, dear learners, these social media platforms encourage a culture of comparison, with many young women aspiring to emulate the physical beauty and lifestyle of celebrities and influencers. In such an environment, the body becomes a site for constant gaze and surveillance. And any deviation from the ideal notion of beauty is viewed as a shame as a source of shame and embarrassment. This has to be, this whole issue has to be also looked at in the context of the ulterior motive of the companies to expand the market for their products. So-called perfect, flawless body images are produced or created to inoculate a typical sense of beauty and body image amongst young girls and ladies in order to lure them to buy beauty and cosmetic products, thereby resulting in the expansion of markets for these products. So we cannot look into this whole idea of objectification of female bodies in isolation from the larger social context and from the larger market. It is our society which stereotypes women, which stereotypes gender roles. Women are being viewed in a particular way, and men are being viewed in a particular way. Their gender roles are being defined. Women and men are socialized to fit into such ideals, to fit into these gender roles. And then based on these societal ideals, societal notions, we have seen booming of a market, growing of a market which, takes advantage of these societal ideals of beauty and perpetuates and reinforces these ideas through advertisements, through media programs, through media shows, and thereby market their products and work for the expansion of markets of this beauty industry. Understood by now how women's bodies, how female bodies are objectified in the media, and how it is related to the larger social context, to the larger societal norms, societal attitudes, and also how it is linked with the market. Now, dear learners, let us discuss about the impact of objectification on a woman's body image and other related issues. So the pervasive objectification of women in the mass media has serious consequences for women's body image and mental well-being. The constant portrayal of an idealized female body in the media, especially in advertising and cinema, fosters a culture of body dissatisfaction. Research has shown that women who consume media that emphasizes physical beauty are more likely to engage in unhealthy weight control behaviors such as extreme dieting or exercising excessively in an attempt to match the images they see. Disordered eating behaviors such as anorexia or bulimia can stem from the pressure to fit to a particular body type. Moreover, young girls who grow up in a media-saturated environment often struggle with body image issues because they internalize the belief that their worth is tied to their appearance. This objectification is not limited to the physical realm, impact in the physical realm. It also extends to women's emotional and mental well-being. Women may feel compelled to seek validation from others, particularly through their looks, which can lead to an unhealthy focus on external approval. In the Indian context, where marriage and familial approval are central to women's societal identity, a woman's physical appearance is often scrutinized, further amplifying the psychological pressures associated with body image. In addition to the impact of objectification on body image, this objectification also has a number of related consequences. The first is sexualization and harassment. When women are portrayed as sexual objects in the media, it normalizes the idea that their primary value is in their attractiveness or sexuality. This contributes to a culture where women are seen as available for objectification and harassment. It can contribute to a society that tolerates or excuses sexual harassment as women's bodies are seen as existing for others' pleasure. Secondly, it can also lead to victim blaming. Women may be blamed for the harassment or assault she faces, as society has been conditioned to view their appearance as an invitation for attention or behavior that they may not want. Then again, this objectification further reinforces, as we have already mentioned, gender stereotypes and inequality. It presents or it perpetuates the narrow gender roles that already exist in society. It reinforces the idea that women are only valuable for their looks or as supportive figures to men. And this creates limited opportunities for women where, the media reinforces the stereotypes that women should only focus on their appearance rather than intellect, skills, or career aspirations, often leading to limited representation in professional fields or leadership roles. Then objectification also leads to mental health struggles. We have already talked about that. The constant exposure to objectifying images and pressure to conform to beauty standards can contribute to a range of mental health issues, including depression or anxiety for feeling of not being attractive enough, or the anxiety of not being able to meet the standards, unattainable beauty standards, and all these can lead to chronic stress, depression, and anxiety. Then women may begin to view themselves primarily through the lens of how they look or how they are perceived by others, rather than their inherent capabilities, worth, and abilities. And this can hinder her personal growth, leading to unhealthy preoccupation with appearance. Then objectification can also lead to or result in a lack of agency amongst women. When women are reduced to objects of desire or aesthetic appeal, their voices, choices, and autonomy are often disregarded. This results in lack of agency among women, and women's perspectives and contributions are often overlooked or minimized, as they are viewed primarily in terms of their physicality. This is especially harmful in professional settings, politics, or media representations, where their ideas may not be taken seriously or may not be considered at all. Then objectification has its negative impact also on relationships and relationship dynamics. It can distort, as we have discussed, how individuals view and interact with women in personal relationships. Men who internalize objectification may struggle to see women as equals in relationships. This can manifest in controlling, possessive, or exploitative behaviors. And if women are seen primarily as objects of desire or pleasure, their emotional needs and desires may be neglected, which again leads to a lack of meaningful connection and intimate relationships with the partners. So objectification, we see, it has multifaceted consequences which affect not only how woman views herself, it also extends beyond her perception. It goes into her behaviors, how her eating habits, her mental health, her relationship with her peers, her relationship with her partners, with her husband. So it has a multitude of impact, negative impacts. And on the societal level also, objectification of women, it creates a very, very negative impact. When media perpetuates this objectification of women, it reinforces harmful attitudes that affect everyone. It normalizes violences against women. Women's bodies are seen as commodities, and rather than as deserving respect and protection. Then it might slow down the progress towards gender inequality, or it can reverse the progress towards gender equality, because it reinforces traditional gender roles then it reinforces how men is supposed to behave, how woman is supposed to behave. It reinforces this kind of existing ideas. It limits opportunities for women and makes it harder to challenge the patriarchal structures. So objectification of women in the media has consequences not only for women, not only for individual women, but it affects the larger social consciousness, it affects the larger society, the societal attitudes, and it leads to the reinforcement or perpetuation of the existing social inequalities, of the existing social hierarchies. And it becomes very, very difficult to resist those hierarchies, because people tend to normalize these, because they see these in media and they get influenced, and they tend to normalize the kind of societal attitudes on women, the kind of social inequalities that women face. They tend to normalize it. So dear learners, we have understood that objectification has far-reaching consequences on women's on body image perception, on self-esteem and societal attitudes. The objectification of women in media doesn't just harm the woman, it creates a society where unequal power dynamics and unrealistic expectations are perpetuated. It fosters a culture where individuals, especially women, are valued less for their individual capabilities, less for their individual abilities, and more for their physical appearance or sexual appeal. And this has a far-reaching consequence for her personal well-being, for societal values, and overall gender equality. Despite these issues, there are, however, signs of change, with resistance movements and growing awareness of the need for a more diverse and inclusive representation of women's bodies. Despite the prevalence of objectification, there is a growing resistance in India to these narrow standards of beauty. Some filmmakers and activists have started challenging traditional representations of women in Indian cinema. Gradually, we now have cinemas and soaps which showcases women's journey towards self-empowerment, which tells the story of females or women defying gender norms, breaking away from traditional portrayals of women as passive and solely concerned with their physical appearance, so on and so forth. These films, soaps, etc. encourage a more holistic understanding of womanhood, one that values strength, intellect, and individuality over the beauty of woman alone. Furthermore, social media platforms have become a space for women to reclaim their bodies and challenge the dominant beauty standards. There are several initiatives and movements on social media platforms led by women from marginalized communities, and these seeks to promote body diversity by showcasing different body types and celebrating natural beauty. With continued advocacy for body positivity and media reform, there is a hope for a future where women are valued for their entirety and not just for their physical form. So, dear learners, from this module we have learned about how media stereotypes women, how media projects and portrays women, how the physical appearance of woman is prioritized over her intellect, over her other capacities and capabilities, and how these kind of portrayals results in creating a kind of stereotypical and idealized body image, and how women in order to fit into that they struggle, how women struggle to fit into those ideals, and how it leads to it affects mental health of women, so on and so forth. And but then towards the end we have also talked about how there is a gradual resistance resistance to the whole idea of objectification of women in the media, and how we see a kind of growing awareness among people, and how we see several activists, several feminists leading forward movements in social media platforms that challenge this whole idea of objectification, that challenge this whole idea of, a stereotypical idea of body, a perfect body image, and that pushes for a more inclusive kind of inclusive idea of beauty that includes the diverse skin tones, the diverse body types, and where women feel included and not marginalized. So these kind of resistance movements are also growing, and we hope that with the passing time we will have a more inclusive society. We will have a society where there is gender equality, and media will play a strong role in this positive change. So with this we conclude here. Thank you for listening.